Shalom, leaders of the pack. This is Rav Natan. I want to share with you something that came to me while I was learning my Torah, my Bible on Shabbat yesterday. In Genesis chapter 28, verse 11, there's something very, very powerful that happens in these following verses that is so pertinent to us as leaders of the pack. So I've got it in Hebrew, I'm going to translate. We're talking about Jacob. Jacob is running away from Esau after taking the birthright, although he didn't take it because it was sold to him by Esau. But we're not going to go into that, right? So he's running away, and Jacob took from the stones of the area, he put them around his head. And he lay down in that place. Now, why did he put those stones around his head? He put the stones around his head because he was protecting himself from wild animals in the area, right? Now, if you fast forward a few more verses, it says like this. After Jacob has this wild dream about angels going up and going down on the ladder. It's interesting, why do they start by going up? If the angels shouldn't they come down and then go up? But that's a whole nother video and a whole nother discussion. It says like this in verse 18. Vayashkem Yaakov baboker, Jacob got up in the morning, vayikach et ha'even asher sam merashatav, and he took the stone. It was plural, right? In verse 11 it says the stones, and here he took the stone that he had put under his head, that he had put around his head. Vayesem ota matzeva, he made it like an altar. Okay, and he put oil on it to make it like an altar. So what happened here? In verse 11, there were a whole lot of stones around his head. Why? We have to read into it. It doesn't say specifically that it was to protect himself, but it makes sense. He was protecting himself, so he put those stones, plural, around his head. But then if you fast forward into verse 18, it's become one stone, not all of the different stones. So what do our commentators tell us about this? And it's an interpretation, so you can take it or leave it. One of our commentators, his name is Rashi, he said like this. He said that it's a bit of an interesting thing, just think out of the box for a second, that God made a miracle that when Jacob put all the stones around his head, plural stones, the stones were arguing and they wanted to all be rested upon by this righteous man. So God makes a miracle and makes all of the different stones one big stone that Jacob then rests his head on. So when I was learning this, I came up with my own question. It goes like this. If Jacob's purpose of putting the stones around his head was to protect himself from the wild animals that were going on in the area, then putting his head on one stone does not fulfill that purpose. It's a pillow rather than a safety. And then after a lot of prayer, a lot of thinking, this is what I realized. There are two ways for us, especially as men, to protect ourselves from the wild animals, from the different things that attack us in our life. One, we can put stones around our head where we stay on the same level, lying on the ground with all of those dangerous animals. But we put the stones around there to try and protect us. But our mind, our head is still on the same level as those animals. Or we can take a stone, we can put it under our head and lift our head up above those wild animals. Hear that? We can either stay on the same level as those wild animals and keep fighting them off as they come, or we can lift ourselves up, our mindset, our intellect, our focus above those wild animals. Then we don't even have to fight them off because we know that we are above them. God created us, leaders of the pack, men of the world. God created us in his image. We are above wild animals. We are above worries. We are above all of those small little things that come to bite us during the day. We are above them because God believes in us. We are above them because we are leaders of the pack. We are investing in ourselves with tools and inspiration to stand up, lead and protect. We don't worry about little wild animals because our mindset, our head is above all of that. and therefore we can take it on. Have an awesome day. You are empowered.